I wanted to make this short video because about being an entrepreneur and the fun and joy of being an entrepreneur, if you can call it that, and why we do it, because that's a good question. I don't know why we do it sometimes. I'm just taking the dogs out for a walk. We're just going to go in the forest, and this watching the sun come up is a little bit of alone time for about half an hour in the morning when I get to think. A little bit windy here, so I don't think I'm going to be able to talk much. Being an entrepreneur and being alone, and saying you're not so alone. Let's get out of the wind. When you give up the 9 to 5 and you take up the 5 to 9, as I say, it's a cultural shock when you are suddenly thrust in and nobody's there to pay your wages, nobody's there to take responsibility, nobody's there to carry the can. And as a matter of fact, the buck stops with you, and it really does. And that's basically being an entrepreneur. Now, I guess the question you must say is, well, why do it? Well, that's a good question too, but it's not so much about that today. What I wanted to discuss was being alone. Now, I'm a landlord. Now, apparently, according to the government, that's not a job. Well, I'd care to differ, but if the government says it's not a job, I guess it's not a job. But what I'm saying is, if you are watching some of the videos that I'm working on right now, you'll see I'm working on a HIMO. We do huge amounts of maintenance, repairs, small stuff, big stuff. Now, this current job I'm on, I guessed, and I didn't really guess, and I should have put it out on a spreadsheet and worked it out, but we are literally hemorrhaging money. Building materials, like plasterboard. We have used 2 pallets of plasterboard, a pallet of plaster, and that's just buying materials. And it's not just that, I've got to put that in a van and take it to site, carry it upstairs, lay it out, and then there's screws, and nobody thinks about the screws. Well, the screws are like an add-on, and money just goes everywhere. We're doing drainage right this very moment, and like, oh, a few bits of drainage, it's hundreds and hundreds of pounds. Now, I thought that, and like I said, I should have done a spreadsheet, and I would say to you, you know, try and work out your costs before you do, but I'm trying to do it as cheaply as I can, as cost effectively as I can, but also I have to do it like really well. This way, come on. I have to do it really well because it's got to last. There's no point in using cheap materials and then you find that you've got repairs a year later. It really needs to work well and last a long time. And the money is just running away. And my wife called me in the other day. She said, can we have a meeting? I said, well, we're married. What do you mean a meeting? I was going to see you in a minute anyway. Well, no. And we had to have a sit down around the table and work out where the money was going, because we didn't have any money. I was spending it all on materials. Now, if you're spending it all on a lovely holiday in the Caribbean, well, that's beautiful. If you're spending it on some beautiful Lamborghini, well, that's beautiful too. But if you're spending thousands and thousands of pounds on plasterboard and paint, is that really glamorous? And so that ends up, I'm going to go this way, that ends up that you start, it plays with your mind. It really does play with your mind. The negativity, the constant negativity hitting you. And I think that's a really, really big thing. And you think, and quite rightly so, that you're alone. You're looking at everybody else, and everybody else is killing it. Oh, they've all got a big car, they've all got a nice new van, they're doing fine, they're going on holiday to the Caribbean. Why aren't you? Well, I guess that's being an entrepreneur. You are putting off the nice things Hello, looks like the dogs just saw a squirrel. You're putting off the nice things, you're delaying gratification, which is really important for the long-term run. Well, when is the long-term run? I've been doing this for decades now, and I'm still delaying the gratification. And it's just relentlessly on your mind, constantly pulling you back. And it's like you're trying to move forward, walking through treacle. And that's quite something. And the faster you want to go, the harder the treacle is to walk through. Like walking through treacle. And I think that's a pretty good analogy, because you're going to hit, everybody's going to want to stop you. Everybody wants you to do well, yeah? Just not better than them. And everybody wants you to what do they say? Reach for the stars and aim for the moon, and if you miss, you'll hit the stars. Oh, come on. That's motivation. You don't need, oh, you do need motivation. You need a little bit, but you need discipline. And that discipline, in this case, what this video is about, is being alone. That discipline is constantly fighting the negativity in your mind. If you look at plants and where we are right now, if you if you walk down the pavement and you see weeds, they don't need any help at all in growing, do they? Oh, they grow thick and fast, weeds. Weeds are quite funny. They'll grow thick and fast, and you don't need any help. They're just there. But if you want to grow orchids, oh no, you've really got to work hard. You've really got to put the time, the effort, the energy, the money. You've really got to work hard to grow orchids. And that's a business. Oh, if you just want to turn up and just do the bare minimum and make the bare minimum wage and go home and, I guess, eat pizza and drink beer, well, that's fantastic. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with eating pizza and drinking beer. I just wish I could. But what I'm saying is, if you want more, it's such hard work, and it's controlling the negativity in your mind. It's controlling, like in this job now, it's going on, and I'm coming to the end almost of month 2. I'm coming to the end of month 2, and month 2 is just hemorrhaging money, and it's just continual work. It's just 8 till 5 every day, Monday to Friday, and then on the weekends you're probably grabbing materials as well. And it's just, hang on, I've got to call the dogs over. This way, come on. It's money, time, relentless, and it's negativity, fighting that negative. And you're alone. I mean, I get to talk to certain people about it, but not really. I get to talk about it to my wife, and she has plenty of negativity of her own to deal with. She's on the computer all day long, and it's coming in thick and fast. You get 20 emails a day. Most of those are like, I don't know, rubbish. But you still got, I mean, we got licensing from the local authority. Well, those emails come in, right? That's a good example. Licensing comes in, and you can't just say, well, I'll deal with that when I'll deal with it. You can't. You deal with that now, because the local authority, they're not going to wait, and there's nothing wrong with that, and I've got no opinion on it. It's their job. They have to do it. They want it licensed. You've got to license it. It's just the way it is. So everything's got to be dropped in order to get that licensing done very quickly. Now, obviously, you can do it in a week or so, but try to get it done immediately. Now, again, it's relentless. It's being on your own. And then I started to talk to other people, and you realize that you're not always alone. As a matter of fact, everybody else has a story, and that their story is not very nice either. And so it begs the question, would you like to swap your story for theirs? I'm not sure you would. I'm not sure you would at all. So are you alone? You are alone with your problems, yes. Yes, you are alone with your problems. But are other entrepreneurs facing the same? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And I don't know, at the time of making this video, our government, which is quasi-socialist government, they're not even left of centre, they're pretty left of centre, have just added an extra 2p to everything that I earn. And so you say, right, well, let's add that to the tenant's bill. No, you can't. You can't just say, right, well, I'm gonna, where's the dogs? I can't just gonna add it to the tenant. No, you can't. Is it fair? It's just what you got to deal with. That's being an entrepreneur. Is it fair? No, life's not fair. Life's not fair. It never is, and it never will be. Deal with it. The government is the government we got. I can get a placard out for all the good a placard would do. The government is the government we got. Accept it, move forward, and deal with it. And when people give up, well, that's not being an entrepreneur then, is it? Now, I hope to add, if I can, some examples of other people that have had it pretty tough too. So there's me complaining that I got a load on my plate and I'm hemorrhaging money and I've got no money and the work is relentless and I'm physically tired every day, but tired. I fall into bed about 8 o'clock at night. But if you listen to other people, they got their story too. They really do have their story. Another example is a guy that I quasi-socialise with. And I'm talking to him about this very subject, about being alone and the problems of entrepreneurialism. And he said, yeah, and he explained the problem he had. He said he was doing a job and he'd signed a contract and he was building a building over a petrol station, a former petrol station. And having built this, they began to dig it up and they found a huge amount of contaminated land. And he said, they didn't tell me that the contaminated land was there, and they did boreholes all the way over the place. Where's the dogs? They did boreholes all over the place. And I said, did they know? He said, oh, did they know? He said, they missed this particular spot really well. They gave us all the results of the boreholes. And he said, we had all this contaminated land to get rid of. Well, he said, we'd allowed 40 to 50,000 to get rid of this land to be dug out, and he said it cost 300,000 in the end. And he said we just had to swallow it. There was no. And I said there was no contingency. He said no. He said they had the contract sewn right up. He said they made a £300,000 saving, and we had to get rid of contaminated waste. And he said that was closely followed by, he said, a friend. He said, a business friend, he said, and we were doing a lot of work for hotels, I think it was, and in that basis, this guy said, I've got my own big house, needs a lot of work doing, could you do it? So he's working, he said, well, okay, I've known you a few years. That's fantastic. Let's do this thing. So he starts working out for the first couple of months, the money's coming through and he's doing loads of work. And then he said, listen, I haven't got no money. It's a little bit tight. I need all the drainage reconnected to finance it and back up. And he said, well, okay, he trusted him. He was seeing him every week. He was having a beer with him. He was friends. And he said, one thing led to another. A month went by, 2 months went by, 3 months went by. Then he said 6 months went by. We were pulling people off by now. And he was saying, oh, you're pulling people off. I ain't got no, oh, yeah. And he said, it was over. He said, we were done again. And he said, including the first one and the second one, he reckons he lost about 600,000. And he said it was too much for him to take. And he said his head, he said it was just too much. And he had to stop. And he had to go and get a different job. He could no longer continue. It was just too, it broke him. And so when you think you're alone and that you're the only one with problems, No, there are other people with problems. That was an entrepreneurial problem. He had a trick played on him the once, and then he had a completely different trick played on him a second time. And he's doing okay now, and he's working well, and he's doing what he's doing, and he's going all over the country. He's going all over the country, and he's back on his feet again. But that is certainly going to take the wind out of yourselves, isn't it? It's certainly, yeah, you're alone. He was alone. He lost it. And what I'm saying is, you're not always alone. There are other people that are either doing exactly the same or worse off. There is another example that I know of. Just wait for these taxis. There's another example that I know. It's an Airbnb, and it's relatively successful. They had a nice little farm, nice area. Again, obviously, I'm not going to say who. And they started to build a power station in the locale, and they weren't included in what was going to be changed, but they changed all the roads, the major roads, the big dual carriageways and things. And it meant that they went from being a fully booked Airbnb to not being fully booked. And so here we have an example of somebody, again, an entrepreneurial ability. Entrepreneurs, they've built this, they've got it licensed, they got everything that they needed, and then somehow life goes and throws them a curved ball, and they had to fight and fight and fight and fight to eventually being included in the changes to the overall area. And even to this day, I won't tell you how big they are, but it was a medium-sized enterprise, and it was making relatively good money. And they find themselves right now, and I spoke to somebody just recently, in the last days or so, and I said, are you at sort of half capacity or what? And I was told by this person, no, where they were running at 1 or 2 every now and then rentals on their Airbnb, which is terrible. Now, nobody talks about that, do they? You again, you think you're on your own. You think, well, your problems, and again, it goes back to that. If you were to write down your problems and somebody else writes down their problems, and you say, well, let's swap problems. You look at their problems and you say, you know what, I'll have mine back. Their problems were not just, oh, well, you know, we're down on our bookings, I'm told, and they were quite open that, you know, it was nervous breakdown time, and it went on, and it didn't go on for months, it went on for years of no money, years of no bookings. Eventually it turned out to be okay, but it's still only okay. But again, nobody tells you that. Entrepreneurs think they're on their own, and they are. You are on your own, but other people are going through those problems too, and please don't think they're not. And this is one of the things that I'm trying to say. You're not alone. Everybody has these problems. And we're back in the forest again. Now, I'm going to give you an example of somebody that I work with, and I'm certainly not going to tell you who they are, but I was talking to them recently, and they do placements for people, and they have to deal with different authoritative bodies. They have to reach a certain level of my dog's in the pond. They have to reach a certain level of accountability, and it's tough. Now, I was talking to this person the other day, And they said, yeah, I just had an operation, and it was a rather painful operation, enough for them to be prescribed morphine, and they were at home. I said, wow, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, I'll phone back. And they said, no, please carry on, it's just nice to talk to someone normal. I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, since you've been on the phone now about 10 minutes, they've missed about 6 phone calls of all different people within this authoritative body that have got problems for her to solve. Wow. I said, well, that's tricky. And they said, it's not just that, the whole team is running, and just because they've had an operation doesn't mean to say that you have to stop work. And so they're at home, led on the sofa in excruciating pain, working. And these authoritative bodies are squeezing finance, making really tall hurdles with which to jump, setting goals, setting standards really quite high, well in excess of what really is required. And this person has to jump through all of these hoops at the same time as overcoming a very painful operation, and still overcoming and that doesn't even take into account any personal mishaps, any personal issues. That's just business. And I sat and I listened, and we were on the phone for about 20 minutes, and I just listened, and I felt really quite sorry. And it made my issues of being hemorrhaging money and stuff, I wouldn't say it paled it into significance, but it certainly put pay to me making any complaints, because mine was just money and trouble and aggravation, and this person's was this person was personal as well, and it just didn't stop. It was relentless. Now this person is alone. This person has no one to bounce off. That's really quite something. So this person is alone. I am alone in my issues. What I'm saying is, you are not alone in as much that everybody else has a problem too. There are lots of people with problems. And if you wanted to, and I'll use this again in later on in the video, if you wrote down all your problems on a piece of paper, and then, look at that, the sun's coming through there. I love that. If you wrote down your problems on a piece of paper, and the other person wrote down their problems on a piece of paper, and then you swapped, what would you say? You'd read their problems and you say, you know what, I'll stick with I take my problems back. I'll keep my problems, thanks. I'll keep my problems. Now there's another case study that I'm going to give you. A friend of mine, I've known him many years, into construction, like most of the people I know were into construction. Now what happened was, he was working around the clock. He was just working from the crack of dawn until at night. He was working weekends, and he was doing really quite well. And I don't think he was a 40% taxpayer, I think he was a 45% taxpayer. So he was doing pretty damn well, and he was deserving of it because he was really putting in the hours, and it was very, very good what he was doing. And his girlfriend said, you need to slow down a bit, it's all a bit too much, you're doing too much. And this is why he's explaining it to me. And he said, what happened was, one night he's coming back late, and he'd just been working like every day for the past like 3 weeks, every day, 12, 14 hours a day. And he said he was coming along on the motorway in the van, he had quite a nice new van, and he said, I just fell asleep. And he said, I veered off, and he hit a parked car, and the girl was in it, Fortunately, nobody died, and she wasn't injured either. It was really, he had a few little injuries, so they were very lucky from that instance. But what it was is he was charged with an offence because he fell asleep at the wheel. There was no drinking, so there was nothing like that. He couldn't drink, he was too busy. And he got banned from driving. So all of a sudden he went from an entrepreneur, developer, builder that was working every single hour that God sent to not being able to drive a van, and well, not having a driving license, not being able to drive a van. And I think he got his license back now, but there's this dramatic change from working absolutely flat out to having the rug taken underneath your feet. And so what does he do in that instance? Well, he was pretty much working alone. And so now he still does some work, but he's gone from property developer flat out to, I wouldn't say jobbing builder, because I think that's kind of disrespectful, but he's just stuck, he was. And he went to almost jobbing builder. His income like fell through the floor, relationship problems. So what I'm saying is, from an entrepreneurial vantage point, from an entrepreneurial viewpoint, he's somebody that was doing exceptionally well and then had a real problem. And so you think that, and again I'll say, if you write down your problems and they write down, other people write down their problems, and you swap, you'd say, well, you know, I'll take mine back, I'll keep my problems. Because he was absolutely stumped at what he could do. And so are you on your own? Yeah, he was on his own. There wasn't much he could do about it. But are you on your own generally? No, we are all in the same boat. Entrepreneurialism, being an entrepreneur, is damned hard work, and things do go dramatically wrong. And then you get, and I will say it, you get a socialist government turn around and say, well, those with the broadest shoulders should pay the most and whatever, and so we're going to increase the revenue that we take from you. We're going to make it harder for you to work. And you say, right, really? Really? Is that really the best way? So are you alone? Yes, you are. Are there others like you? Oh, yes. There are others like you. And again, he when I was speaking to him, was in the same boat as me. It's controlling your mind, all the negativity, the negatives, it seeps in and it seeps in and it seeps in, and you have to control that. Listen to happy music. I sometimes listen to motivational YouTube videos. Anything I can. I tend to, I don't watch the news. Don't watch, if you watch the news, and if you watch economic programs of how bad we're doing and what government comes in and does this and does that, it'll just get you down. So you are alone, deal with it. That's what being an entrepreneur is about. And so you are alone, but there are many of you. I'm one.